Welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, where we bring you conversations with the top business minds on Long Island and around the nation every week. Featuring expert consultants and small business owners who have found success but are also willing to share their top tips, failures, and give gritty, matter-of-fact advice based on their firsthand experience. Now, let's get down to business on Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello and welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation. My name is Ray Schwetz, AVP of Business Banking at Jovia Financial Credit Union, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, CEO, keeper of the brand, marketing and digital agency.
We're focused on being a premier resource for business and entrepreneurship. Plus, we interview the top business leaders in the industry, giving them the best advice, tips, tools, and services to help them grow their business.
Yeah, and I'm very excited about our guest today. Our guest is a very good friend of mine. We've known each other for a very long time. He's someone that has a really cool, interesting background, great business, very unique. And I don't think we've had anybody like him on the show, so I'm very excited. Bringing us business empowerment today is Frank Ferrantello, and he's the owner of the Ferrantello Land Surveying Group. Frank, welcome to the show.
Ray, good morning. Thank you for having me. Denise as well. Thank you so much. Ferrantello Group, Land Surveying Civil Engineers, been around for over 60 years.
Yeah.
I grew up in the business from 7 years old on, working over professionally 20 years in the industry, and licensed for over 11.
So now what does a land surveying company do for our listeners out there?
So land surveyors survey land, buildings, scenes like accidents, trip and falls, slip and falls, boundary issues, retaining wall collapses. The sky's the limit. We're very, very broad and very diverse, and been a success for 60 years, surviving the economy.
Now, you're very young for 60 years, so tell us how you got how your family got started in this business.
So over 60 years ago, my father's first and last job was land surveying and civil engineering. And he went to Nassau Community College, as did I.
Yay.
And he moved on to NYU, and I moved on to Hofstra. And we, grew the company from scratch. Basically, he started with no records. So surveying records are, established land records, such as surveys, maps, deeds. And he's built a record archive of over millions of records, tens of millions of records.
Wow. And is it all physical records? Is it I'm picturing almost like you go into your building and there's a warehouse, like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
It is. It's like a tomb. It's the sacred tomb. The records, the papers, even the smell of 200 years of history.
Wow.
It can be smelt. Bottom line is half of it's digital now.
Okay.
Because we're going with the times, riding the waves. We're digitizing all of our records and all of our procedures for a remote workforce.
Nice.
Now, what goes into that work? I mean, so you have all these surveys. What is it that exactly you do? What's kind of your day-to-day look like?
So a land surveyor really is part architect, part attorney, part archaeologist, part historian. We do research at the county clerk's office, get deeds, filed subdivision maps, get easement descriptions. We collect surveys from various sources, and we go out, do field reconnaissance, kind of like Indiana Jones. And we go look for monuments and lost points. And a monument has an X on it, and the X marks the spot to start from. And then we do our surveying almost every square foot of properties, whether it's trees, utilities, topography, the lay of the land, the way the water flows, retaining walls, underground subsurface utilities. And we plot all that out, calculate the boundary, do an analysis, and then give a finished product to our client and consult with the client. Are they going to purchase the property? How are they going to develop it? And what the improvement's going to look like afterwards.
When we see, people in the city, a guy standing on a corner with some big tool that looks like
a tripod. With
yeah.
what looks like a laser-guided photographic or videographic camera.
Right.
That's a surveying instrument. And most of them are robotic nowadays.
That's cool, because I see those guys all the time. You always wonder, I wonder what he's doing.
It's a mystery.
It is.
Yes, it is.
Now, when you say the projects that you're mentioning, I'm assuming commercial. Do you do commercial and residential?
So we primarily concentrate on Montauk to Manhattan and beyond, but residential, 50 by 100 to 50-story buildings. So we do it all. We're very diverse, and we have over 300 main services that we provide.
And when does somebody know, like, because I wouldn't automatically know, all right, you know what, this is a job for a land surveyor, but when do you know that, all right, I should really consult someone like you?
Anything with a land-related project, regrading your land, bringing in fill, putting up a new fence, going for a building permit, you need a building department survey, buying, selling, refinancing property, you need a title survey to acquire clean title to the property, and other instances, slip and falls, trip and falls, vehicular accidents, boundary discrepancies, development projects, such as condominiums and townhomes.
And does a person approach you or a business owner approach you directly, or are you approached through an attorney?
All kinds. So we have clients in banking, building, developing, even disputing. So, we're in real estate, construction, litigation industry. So basically, any attorney, any land development professional, like a developer, builder, contractor, a property owner, whether it's a individual homeowner or a large tract of land, such as a vineyard or a development tract for subdivisions and multiple homes.
Now, how does someone authenticate your report to ensure that it's accurate?
So it is my opinion at the end of the day, as a licensed professional, it is my professional opinion, but it has to be on reasonable doubt. It has to be as close to the truth as physically possible. And we use multiple sets of evidence. That's what about the archaeology part of the profession is going out, seeking that evidence. And that's the philosophy I have, is going out there like the Raiders of the Lost Ark and going to find that monumentation and survey evidence that many don't do a very diligent effort like we do.
Can you give an example of what evidence would be?
So on the corner of a block, there might be a stone or granite block with a cross in it. And it could be there for 150 years. Many times in Manhattan, you'll see like a brass bar on the intersection of the sidewalks. And that's a representation of the imaginary boundary line that is memorialized in the physical realm.
Now, in addition to the Indiana Jones hat, right, you also, I also picture, and I'm a film guy, so I always picture it, in terms of movies. I picture you also in a lot of courtroom genres because, we've had conversations. You are also called into cases as a subject matter expert witness, correct?
So I've been a fact witness, an expert witness, in many cases. High profile, flood cases in Brooklyn where whole buildings, with Sandy just flooded out the entire facility with medical supplies in it. So yes, I have a talent and a knack for investigative maps and situations. So what we do is we map out the scenes, trip and falls, slip and falls, cracked sidewalks, ramps. And I'm an expert witness, and I go from boots to suits and from courtyards to courtrooms.
How did you fall into that work? Or was that always kind of related? I'm just curious.
It's always related. A licensed land surveying profession has to be knowledgeable and well-versed in land surveying, boundary law, environmental law, general business law. It's a part of the profession and the licensure.
I'm not sure how many land surveying companies are out there. I know there are others. I won't speak of them.
Not many, though.
No, I'm teasing. Well, and yeah, as you said, not many. What is your differentiator?
So my differentiator is my approach, my people. I do not only train my people and educate them, I mentor them, and my clients appreciate me. I appreciate them as well as my team.
Now, what do you like most about this business? I know you kind of grew up in the business, but sometimes with family-owned businesses, people tend to go the opposite direction.
I'm a free thinker, and yes, I'm a Sicilian and emotional. However, I've been able to overcome that, and I work well with people from all walks of life. I speak many languages. I'm very well-versed and learned in different cultures and languages and religions, and I love people. I'm a fan of man, in the general sense.
You are listening to Tara Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, and our guest today is Frank Ferrantello, and he's the Frank Ferrantello, and he's the owner of Ferrantello Land Surveying Group. So, Frank, what are some of the misconceptions of your work?
So, the general public do not know a lot about land surveyors, but George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, David Thoreau, Lewis and Clark, they're all land surveyors and explorers, just like I am. And we love the field. We marry the investigative legal nature of it with the history, lay of the land, technology, and the field, being outdoors with nature and being one with it.
What are some of the challenges that you faced? I mean, all the businesses over the last 18 months, 2 years at this point now, have faced a lot of challenges. I imagine, you going out in the field, that must have been a huge challenge for you.
Well, we've been blessed. Again, a lot of our field crews have technology that is robotic. It's a one-man show with a survey crew nowadays, because the advantage of technology. And we're able to go out by ourselves and do our work. And we do municipal projects, we do utility projects, telecommunications, large-scale projects. So we were pretty, very blessed, to be honest. We closed down for a few weeks, give our team a rest. But we were essential in the utility, construction, municipal realm. And we were able to work through most of the pandemic and lockdowns.
And so now that people are sometimes not returning to work now because they want to be remote, you mentioned that earlier, how have you transitioned at this point?
We're digitizing our records. We're reducing our footprint in a physical presence and going more digital with streamlined workflows.
And is that how you're seeing things evolve since the pandemic, or is that something that's kind of always been going on?
Absolutely. All day long, we've surveyed parking lots and office buildings and other facilities, and it's vacant.
Yeah.
Wow.
There is a ghost-like feel to that, and because everything's going to the digital realm.
And what's your feel, and obviously this is opinion, but what's your feel about, how is that going to change? I mean, from a banker's perspective, I do see repurposing of buildings and I see that sort of thing, but what is it that you're seeing from your perspective?
I see a massive disruption of, technology, and, we will utilize and leverage technology to the best of our building with AI, robotics, and other streamlined, optimized processes. And, things will have to change. We will have to adapt and be dynamic, and that's the type of professional I am. So I see a lot of that with office buildings and, the business leasing space, like WeWork, Regis, and other co-working spaces. It's going now digital as opposed to a physical presence.
And now some business retail spaces are also converting to from commercial to residential. Would someone need a land surveying company like yours if that process was going to begin?
Absolutely. Any type of building department, permit-related project would need a up-to-date building survey.
And do you see that happening more and more often in the last couple of years? Like I go into Roosevelt Field and I'm like, Oh my goodness, all these, retail locations are empty.
Listen, look at Blockbuster, then Netflix. Look at Starbucks. Not only survived, but thrived the crash of 2008. They have now the largest payment platform in the world, and they gamified the application, and you get rewards, and they were dynamic, and they not only survived and thrived, and so did we back in 2008. And now we're having some challenges, but we are growing, and we're still busy, and we're looking towards the future, smart cities, smart roads, smart utilities, and beyond.
Yeah, and I think that technology bit, so it's kind of like cell phones. 10 years ago, cell phones was not the industry it is now. And now I pay $200 and change a month, $300 a month for cell phones, and it's a bill I didn't even have before. It's a completely new industry if you really think about it.
Absolutely.
Now, so I know you've seen some crazy stuff, and I want to hear some of those stories.
I have more stories than Walt Disney, Greg.
So, without naming names, keeping people innocent here, or not innocent but unnamed. What is the craziest story? Something that you've worked on?
People related, or just a project related?
Give us both.
Yeah, why don't you give us one of each?
I've had published articles, and one was a $3 million mansion up in the North Shore of Long Island, the Gold Coast, and they didn't have a property survey. They had a 1950 survey utilized to close, and it was outdated, and they relied on it for a $3 million property purchase to develop the property with a mansion with a water view. And they expected to clear the trees, which they thought was on the right-of-way or the driveway easement. And they did not own the driveway easement or right-of-way any longer, that it was indicated so in the survey from 1950, but it was sold off by a hedge fund company that acquired the property and flipped it. So not only could they not clear the trees and have a water view, there was a vista easement, a limiting plane or height restriction on the property where their main residence was planned to be developed. So therefore, a portion of the house could only be 1 story and not 2 stories.
Oh, wow.
So
For $3 million.
what you could save in pennies, you're going to pay in pounds.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge. All right, so that's a property. So now let's talk about people. And again, you don't have to name names.
So unfortunately, I've seen people fight over the thickness of a brick when it comes to a shared party wall, the thickness of a PVC fence, which is 5 inches in girth.
Wow.
And they fight over the 1/8 of an inch or less. They really do. It's sad and petty. People are doing things for spite nowadays. But my latest case is just someone just building, stakes and spikes and just doing things along the property line to be spiteful against the neighbor. And, they have a battle. I do often have people come at me yelling, screaming, calling the police, say, I don't want you on my property, even though we have a right of entry statute and law that I helped create. We have to enter into certain properties and lands to do our professional job. We're New York State licensed land surveyors.
And so when you do that, do you have a badge or something to show people, or do you just pop up?
We have a company ID with a backing of the state. So the actual back of the ID has the state law, New York State General Obligation Law, Section 9105, right of entry.
And do you advise people like, okay, we're coming out to your property on this day, or is it just like, okay, I see this guy with this
when
tool.
we can, we'll give advance notice in larger properties, commercial properties, but a lot of times we're out there, we don't know what we're going to find. A survey is actually an investigation.
Yeah.
And one of the most misconceptions is that, it's X amount of dollars, X amount of time. And it's ongoing investigation. We're doing reconnaissance, research, a little archaeology, trying to find the survey evidence, these survey points or monuments they're called, to have legal physical evidence of the memorialized boundary lines.
Now you've mentioned, a lot of evidence above ground, but and Ray has mentioned, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Can we go below ground a little and just talk about? I mean, do you guys find things like? In Wall Street, they found there was slave slaves, burials and all these different things
Indian burial grounds.
Yes.
I'm thinking of poltergeist now. So
we're surveying a high stakes industry. We're surveying above, below, and on the surface of the earth. So yes, we found old skeletons of maybe a fox in Woodbury. There's a lot of fox and Woodbury deer in the Hamptons. You'd be surprised you find some skeletons sometimes.
Like Jurassic.
I've found contamination on certain projects. I've been involved with a large telecommunication company's owner and CEO surveying his property up in the Gold Coast, North Shore. And the next day they found a dead body at the same location I was the previous day.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
You think you'll
It
find
washed up on the shore of Long Island.
Jimmy Hoffa?
No, I don't think it was Jimmy Hoffa's body, but
I'm just wondering. He hasn't been found. They said he's under a giant stadium, but that imploded, and now
I think he's in concrete someplace.
You think so?
From my experience, yeah.
I think that's safe to say.
No evidence, though.
Yeah.
You'd have no evidence.
No.
Now, you mentioned something about the clearing of the trees with the project story. So it's funny because until I was a commercial lender or working for a commercial lender, I really didn't understand the whole, I knew the property rights because I have a survey for my house when I bought it. How does all that work? I mean, how high up are air rights and how does that work?
So there's zoning regulations restricting the height. So depending on your village or town or city's zoning regulations, they'll have a maximum height or a maximum amount of stories. The air rights are almost unlimited in certain senses. In Manhattan, there's land development, setback, and air rights. So like a large plaza that's being built from the property line to the 50-story building, it has to have a setback of, let's say, 50 feet. Mm-hmm. That's why they have these large open plazas with seating and benching and landscaping and statues and artwork, because it's really dead space.
Yeah.
It cannot be developed.
Wow.
So, air rights are very, very valuable.
Because it'd be cool if I had a lot of air rights and I could start charging SpaceX for being above me.
I think
right?
so. I love that.
Listen, this is what the future and even the digital property realms, like NFTs, non-fungible tokens. I don't know if you're familiar with digital assets or not.
Yes.
But this is very, very exciting and up and coming. And the future is now in that regards.
Yeah, it's an industry, again, that didn't exist, 2 years ago.
True, yeah.
It's crazy.
So I'll give you a little story. I was building my house in 2007. I came home, and it was a new development, 53 family development. I arrive home and I see they put the foundation for the home behind me in. And then they started building the home. Ooh. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so close to my fence.
Overpowering, almost.
Oh, it's like an eyesore. And they're like, well, this is the the legal right of how far the foundation can be.
The building envelope.
Yes. I almost freaked out. So, of course, my neighbor loves me because I feel like he's living in my backyard. But I needed someone like you, almost. Right? I needed to call someone like your company or my attorneys and say, hey, check this out.
Yeah, a lot of property lines, the majority of them are not marked or monumented. So it's important to stake your claim and see where your meets and bounds are. Where are the limits of your property? And, a lot of real estate professionals are great and all, but they're not land surveyors. Right. And without a proper up-to-date survey, you really can't see where your property line is. So if they show you a piece of property and the trees are over here, you may think that's the boundary line, but the trees or the fence line isn't essentially the property line. It's the actual legal deed and maps that set the property lines, and you may not see them. They may be imaginary to them, to the eye, or to the real estate professional. And you really need a land surveyor to either stake it out, mark it out on the physical surface of the earth, or show you the property line and walk the grand tour with you.
Absolutely. And some of these things are changing in real time, where you see a lot of the utilities that were above ground at one time. Now they're going below ground. Is that something that your company, establishes? Okay, we've had, electrical poles that were above ground for this town, and now it has since changed.
I have a property within central Nassau County, and the developer has a catch basin or a drain right in the middle of where his new driveway is going. He doubled the size of the house. There's a utility pole right next door to it. And it's on county road, which is a county process. There's a whole separate county road permitting process for entrances and driveways and traffic onto a county road. Well, a very difficult situation where I had to navigate, meet with the county, and solve the issue, and we did. So yes, when it comes to utilities like that, some utility poles can't be moved. Sometimes you can't connect to certain poles. They don't have, three-phase electric. They don't have a transformer on the pole. So yes, a lot of experienced land surveyors such as me have experience with the utilities and the infrastructure and moving them or remediating them.
You are listening to Tower Talk Business Radio. Today, our guest is Frank Ferrantello, owner of Ferrantello Land Surveying Group. My name is Donyshia Boston-Hill, along with Ray Schwetz, on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Now, one of the things I kind of worry about is right now I have great neighbors. I'm very happy. Everything's good. But I always wonder, we have the white PVC fence all over the property. One of the things I'm always kind of concerned about is, what happens if the neighbor that I love moves and somebody else comes in and starts to challenge, hey, I don't think the fence is on the right line. I'm looking at my survey. I think this is wrong. Is there any kind of statute with that? I mean, how does that work?
Absolutely. But let me ask you a question, Ray.
Yeah.
What's the price of that good neighbor? Would you say it's priceless?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Would you want a neighbor harassing you, filming you, honking the horn at you every single day? That's what people do, unfortunately. So good fences make good neighbors.
Yes.
Fences in the wrong locations make wrong neighbors, and bad neighbors. So you don't want to have a wrong fence location and have the wrong neighbor next to you, because a good neighbor can turn irate. So there's a 10-year statutory period of limitations for adverse possession. So when someone is claiming portion of your property adversely, there is a statute with certain conditions that has to be met to claim the land, and basically, essentially, your property is your baby and your cookie, right?
Yeah.
And if they take a bite in your cookie is no longer transferable or saleable. So it is a major issue that people are not aware of.
Wow.
I can see that. When I first moved in, it was empty land and no fences.
Yeah.
And I called Home Depot. I gave them my survey. They put up the fence. And then my neighbor said, well, how did you know where to put the fence? And I was like, land survey, here you go.
So when you leave extra inches on the other side, the neighbor's side of the fence, those extra inches could be claimed by the neighbor in certain conditions and situations.
Yeah, and we did have that. We knowingly, just by the shape of our property, had excess property outside. Unfortunately, just the way the fence was put together, we really couldn't So we let them take it.
Everyone I talk to at a bar, at a Starbucks, here or there, they all have a problem. 40% of situations have some type of land-related or possession-related issue.
Oh, wow. So it's prevalent on Long Island.
It is.
Now, what advice do you have for somebody who is, I guess, let's talk about it from the residential side, and then let's talk about it from the commercial side. What advice do you have for somebody who's investing in a house? What should they do?
It's your land. It's your home, your house. Not many people are going to buy and sell land and homes as a commodity. Mm-hmm. How much is a home? 4, 5, 100,000, $1 million, $2 million. It only takes one property for you to lose your shirt.
Yeah.
And have a bad taste in your mouth. So it's important to get a proper survey, get it staked so you can see the actual administrative boundary lines, and make sure it's done by a reputable land surveyor, because a lot of surveyors can just copy surveys.
And now, is the survey process the same as my inspection? When I go to buy a home, I need to see that survey the same way I see a home inspection?
A home inspection investigates to the mechanicals, the drainage-related issues, the roof, maintenance. The property is completely different, and it has more of a legal impact if you think about it. The neighbor can claim an easement, can claim a driveway over your property, can claim the 12 to 18 inches on the other side of the fence. Maybe he has got a structure on your property, or maybe his shed has an overhang, and you want to move your fence over to the true property line and reclaim your property, and something's barring you from doing so. Those are major issues.
So should I have that document before I close?
Absolutely. You need that property because it's your problem. Once you close, it's your headache.
Perfect.
And not the seller's. The seller has a right and a duty to sell you a free and unencumbered, unencroached upon property and asset.
Now, as we come to a close, what's the one thought you want to leave our listeners with? And please make sure you include your contact information where we can find you.
Sure. So the most important related document in real estate construction is a land survey. Get it done by a reputable land surveyor well in advance. Make sure all your permits are closed out so you can sell your property free and clear, or purchase the property free and clear from any encumbrances, encroachments, or issues that burden the property. And they can reach me on my website, fgrouppc.com. That's Ferrantello Group PC. So it's fgrouppc.com, and my email is frank@fgrouppc.com. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Denise.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being with us today, Frank. We really appreciate it. And we want to leave you a little bit of DB's philosophy.
The land is where our roots are. The children will be taught to feel and live in harmony with the earth. Maria Montessori.
I want to thank you for being with us. My name is Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, your co-host and producers. This is an NCC Foundation Business Leaders Council production. Visit ncc.org for more information. We're available on Odyssey, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This has been Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the National Community College Foundation on the voice of National Community College, 90.3 WHPC.